Some would say that I am a clone of a David Carroll or an Akwesi 100. That is far from the case. I come from a publishing background, and in a publishing background, you run into all sorts of people with all sorts of opinions and all sorts of views. And in the publishing world, you learn to develop a very thick skin very quickly. And why? Because you're going to deal with people who are plain and simple just not going to like your work. And in some cases, they may not even like you, and you can't take it personal. And this is something I learned over the last almost 20 years, being a professional freelance writer. I have dealt with all sorts of opinions and all sorts of views, and you know, you learn how to shake it off. And I can honestly tell you from my personal experience, I've dealt with a lot of differences of opinion. This book right here, The Temptation of John Haynes, this very book got 500 rejections. And I had to shake it off and, continue to persevere with it. This is after 500 rejections. Some of them were telling me things like the book was too long. They didn't like the concept. I had one agent pretty much tell me we don't want to publish fiction like this. That was their opinion regarding Temptation of John Haynes. And this book right here is one of my most critically acclaimed and one of my, at one time one of my better selling novels. And that's so much for opinion. And this book over here, the Cassandra Cookbook, this was my second novel I published back in 2008. This book got 400 rejections. And when I produced this, when I was submitting this book to publishers and literary agents, I came this close to securing an agent and even securing publication with a trade house. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out, and I had to go the self-publishing route. But I dealt with a lot of rejections. Some of them were positive, some of them were negative. But at the end of the day, I had to learn that, that was their opinion regarding this book. And this one, again, is another one of my better selling, more critically acclaimed novels. And this book has been out, when I repackaged it as a recipe for success. And it's one of my it still sells to this day. And, you just eventually learn how to deal with different opinions, different viewpoints. You learn that, one agent's view of your work is not the only view of their work, and that, it's very, very, very subjective in the publishing world, especially when it comes to fiction. What one agent may like or one editor may like, another may not like. And you just learn how to, take it. And another book that I did produce, self-published, all about Maryland here. This is another book. This book was pretty much when I wrote the screenplay and I submitted it to contests. Many in the screenwriting world hated this screenplay. However, when I published it in paperback form and I shared this book with women all over the world, one of the most popular books in the SJS Direct imprint, critically acclaimed, loved by women of all races, black, white, Asian, all over the world. People love this book. And I believe if they ever made a movie, it would be a big hit because women relate to this character, they identify with this character, and they see themselves in this character. So for opinions, they really don't mean anything. Because again, the people I sent this to screenplay contest, they hated this book. They hated this screenplay. But when I published it and submitted it to the readers, the audience, they loved it. But that shows you, the impact of an opinion and how little value opinions have, because they vary from person to person. And again, when you're in the publishing world, you just learn how to deal with differences of opinion, disagreements, and you just learn how to let it roll off you. I mean, I remember some queries I would get, where I remember a rejection I got within an hour one time. I was on AOL. That was back when we had the 56K modems. I sent out an email query to this agent. He got back to me in an hour, told me he didn't want it. I went back to looking at this comic book board and moving on. And that's what eventually, this is the type of thick skin you learn how to that you learn how to develop over time. And that was way back in 2004 before I even started my blog. Now, my skin really got tough, you know, dealing with the comments section after, I started writing blogs regarding black women. Now, I did several blogs, dealing with the issues of black women. And there were women telling me that I should be banned. How could I write this type of stuff? I'm a misogynist. I'm a sexist. All sorts of shaming language. And over time, I learned to realize, what, it's their opinion. Whether if they want to have that opinion, okay, you have that opinion. And I used to reply to some of them back in the day, but now I'm starting to understand, what, just let these people have their opinion. It's their opinion. I presented my opinion in this blog, and if I present this opinion in their blog, they have a right to respond to it. And if they want to respond to it, as long as they don't get personal, as long as they don't go into ad hominem attacks and stalking, you know, they're allowed to have that opinion and present that discourse. I mean, I've had people, write counter blogs to blogs that I've written, like Why Real Men Avoid Single Mothers. Women who hadn't been writing for years were felt so upset about the blog Why Real Men Avoid Single Mothers that they went out and wrote a blog. And a blog that I wrote called Why 70% of Black Women Are Single, wrote that blog. People didn't like that one. And another woman, came out, hadn't been writing for years, decided to dust off herself and write a blog responding to it. And the same thing, and the whole thing is, I just, after a while, I said, I just can't keep going back and forth with people. It just serves no purpose. I present to this point. This is the point I'm presenting. If you don't like the point, I'm going to move on. And that's just something I learned how to do. These days I just don't sit there and go back and forth with people. I remember back in maybe 2011, 2012, I used to do that. And I saw that it was I started saying to myself, it's just a waste of time. These days, there are old blogs that people are still getting upset about. These blogs are 2, 3, 4 years old. And, I pretty much have moved past them. And I'm now focusing on other materials and focusing on other things that I want to write about. And, I really don't have time to go back to these old 2 and 3, 4-year-old blogs and continue to argue and go back and forth with people over the differences of their opinion. Eventually, you reach a point where you go, you know what? It's an article. I don't have to agree with the points that are presented in it with it. There's this little red X at the top of the right hand on your Windows or the left hand on your Mac. If you don't like the opinions presented, you can just click out of it. And that's just something that you learn over time. Because again, I've traveled all over this World Wide Web, and I have seen all sorts of different views. Again, I have seen atheists, goths, homosexuals, all sorts of websites, and even feminists. And I just took the information, digested it, and moved on. If I didn't agree with the content on that website, I just stopped visiting the website. Now, I've seen people who are so dysfunctional, they will see a view, an opinion on somebody's own personal webpage, and they will chase that person, and I've had this happen to myself with my own blog, chase this person in an effort to hope to convince this person that their opinion is the right opinion. And that's extremely dysfunctional because, this is that person's personal webpage, this is their content. If you don't like their content, again, red X on the left-hand side on the Mac, right-hand side on the Windows, click out of it, move on. There is no need to be getting upset and angry over somebody else's page or somebody else's content. But in your Negro community, the only thing that they think is that, either you're trying to copy somebody else or, you can't form your own opinions. Now, before there was a David Carroll, before there was an Akwesi 100, there was a guy called T-Mott. And T-Mott was short for the Minister of Truth. He now goes by Derek Grayson. And Derek Grayson has almost the same conservative views as David Carroll. And he also, just like me, does not use profanity in his videos. He's been around for at least about 7, 8 years making videos. And I relate to his values because they're a lot just like my values. And like again, David Carroll isn't the only one with these views. You have T-Mott with these views. You had Dan Freeman, who was previously on YouTube for, about 7, 8 years ago, he presented similar arguments. Same thing with the Iceman, Mad Voodoo Man, presents the same, views. And Real Man Allen, a couple of years ago, when he was on YouTube, presented similar views. So nobody is copying anyone. Many people have things in common. They share the same views. They share the same ideas, and that's how it goes. But with the Negro, unless everybody is agreeing with them, they think there's something wrong with them. They think their opinion is the only opinion, and if you're not agreeing with them, there's something wrong with you. Again, many of your Negroes are stuck in a state of arrested development, and they think like 12 and 13-year-olds, and their mentality is that way. It's, again, arrested development. They don't want to understand that when you go outside into the world, you're going to see different opinions, different viewpoints, different ideas, different concepts, and your opinion isn't the only opinion. I mean, especially you learn this, especially if you go to college, you're going to run into all sorts of people, and it's a real culture shock because you're going to run into, your atheists, your goths, your hippies, all sorts of people from all sorts of life. This is what you're going to see on your college campus, especially if you go to a big university like a Columbia or NYU. Now, if you go to a small college like I did, you may not see as many people. But when I would go to visit my sister when she went to Columbia University, or my brother when he went to another university, um, ran into all sorts of people, and their views were completely different from mine. I even remember when I was working at the library at the college I was in civil service. Again, you're going to run into all sorts of people, and you have to be able to understand that these people grew up with different values than you had, and that, their opinion and their ideas they have a right to those opinions and ideas because this is how they were raised. And this is their opinion about the world. This is the way they were raised about the world. And you know what? It may be different from yours, and you may disagree with it, but that's how it is. And this is just, again, something I learned from my personal life, and two, from working in the publishing world where you're going to run into all sorts of different books. I mean, I remember when I was going to the Harlem Book Fair, I saw street lit, erotica, all sorts of books. And I was like one of the few tables with positive African American fiction. And, you have to be able to see different views. But when the Negro world, everything is usually, everybody tries to make everything monolithic, one view, one opinion, everybody tries to fit everything into one box. And that's not right. I mean, in the United States of America, we need to have everybody else can have, diverse views and diverse opinions and diverse ideas. But in the African American world, everything has to be one way. And that idea really has to change. And, you know, that's something I really work hard towards in my own publications and in the work that I produce, because I really want people to get that broader picture of what black is, because I believe that black is not just some one monolithic identity or one monolithic experience like your pro-blacks do, or your other blacks do, who will buy into this whole urban concept, this whole street concept. There are black people who have had all sorts of, experiences and all sorts of cultures and come from different cultures, and they don't deserve to be acknowledged as black. Their black experience doesn't deserve to have its story told. Their black experience doesn't deserve to be, acknowledged by the overall society. We only have to acknowledge the one version of black that fits into the narrative of the white liberal, which is your street Negro, your hood rat, your dusty Negro, your thug, and this is what everybody wants to see as black, or your pro-blacks view, which is completely way over there, talking about black man coming from going back to Africa and all this other stuff. I mean, these are the only two narratives we can have for black people. We can't have other narratives about black people and other stories about the black experience. I mean, I feel that that's wrong. And that's one of the things that I like to talk about. Now, I may talk about, in videos like Negro Children of the Corn. That comes from my family's background in education, and I really wanted to, bring those points up, and then things about what I've seen, from reading the Bible about the bitter harvest and sowing the seeds. That's where that video came from. So a lot of people don't understand. Now, I may agree with many of David Carroll's positions or Kwesi 100 positions or even T-Moss positions, but I have my own voice and I have my own views. And we can agree on things and we disagree on things. But the whole point is that, you know, social media on the black side, it really needs to change because on the black side of social media, you have people trying to bully other black people and make their voice the only voice. And I feel that that's wrong. I feel that if white people and Asian people, Hispanic people can have all sorts of voices and views on social media, such as your YouTube, your Facebook, your Instagram, why can't we have all sorts of diverse views and opinions on the black side? Because that's going to enrich people's lives when we have those different opinions and those different views. That's going to allow for an intelligent discourse, regarding being black. We need to have those different views presented and those different stories presented because that's going to open people up to seeing that, you know, there is more to life than somebody's one narrow view of the black experience. And that the more people we see and the more people we talk to, the more we learn, not only about them, but ourselves. And that's something, I really believe in. And that's my view of things. And you may agree with it, you may disagree with it. And this is something that we know we really need to have. When I look at the black side, of a place like a YouTube or Facebook, I mean, we have to get it out of the gutter. The only way to get it out of the gutter is to present these different opinions because I look at, many of these social media that involve black people, and I know there's more to black people than butt pics, pictures, silly memes, um, videos of people twerking, videos of street fights. We really need to see, or people talking about, white supremacy and racism. Really need to see other pictures of the black experience, other, content about the black experience. This is why I enjoy, presenting videos about things like African American fantasy or, talking about comic books. Those blogs and these videos that I make about African American fantasy and comics are some of the ones I really enjoy producing. Um, again, I don't like making videos like I did previously about a couple days ago, you know, constructively chastising this pro-black authority. I don't like doing those type of videos. Videos I enjoy doing, broaden people and they get a lot more views. When I do a video about, you know, African American fantasy, that video gets maybe 100, 150 views sometimes. And I love doing those type of videos because it allows me to share my knowledge with viewers, the same knowledge I share on my blog, www.shawnsjames.blogspot.com. And, it helps me, reach out to not only black sci-fi and comic fans, but to non-black sci-fi and comic fans. And both groups, really enjoy those articles. And I like doing that type of content, but I also like to do issues about the black community because that's how a lot of people know, my content. And the whole thing is that I'm not trying to copy anyone. This has been my platform since about 2008, 2009, since I lost my job at the college library. And these are the topics that I like to talk about. Um, you know, and these are the values that I've had ever since I was a little boy. This is the way my mother and father raised me. This is why I don't curse. This is why I don't. Because in my home, we don't use profanity in our home. This is the way we talk to each other. This is the way I talk to my brother. This is the way I talk to my sister. This is the way I talk to my mother. This is the way I talk to my father when I'm on the phone with him. This is how we talk to each other. This is how I live. So, you know, um, there is no copying anyone. This is just the way I live. And there are other guys who have the exact same views that I have, They have the same opinions. We agree. And the whole thing is that I've, interacted with guys like Dan Freeman in the past, just in the comment section. I decided to start doing videos again to promote my books. I know I'm rambling right now, but, to promote my books and to let readers know that there's a person, behind these type of stories, and that there's a guy out here, who wants to connect with you and share these type of his stories about the African American experience, and reach out to those audiences. Because I've had people say to me, you have to talk to people, and I feel that in social media is the best way to talk to people. Until I can get to a place where I can make enough money to afford to attend a thing like a Harlem Book Fair or a New York Comic Con, or do events like that. And I'm trying to get back to that level. But my finances are kind of messed up because I've been out of work. But this is something I'm trying to do. And these are my views. These are my core values. And I don't have to copy anyone. I've been on blogging since I'd say about 2008 on the regular. I had a blog in 2007, had one before then, and I just started. I had been doing I did 1 or 2 videos back in the day, when people were getting heavily false flagged, to talk about how that was censorship. And now I'm doing them regularly because I really want to reach out to readers. I want them to see my books. I want them to connect with the guy who writes the stories. I want them to see that these views are not in the books, are not just, just something they imagine. They come from my own personal values, my own personal experiences, and also, they also come from, ideas that I've had, and I want them to see the person who has those ideas. So, the Shawn James view of the world may be similar to others, but it is original and unique. And that's all I have to say for this video. You can find great books like Temptation of John Haynes here in paperback, and you can find it on Kindle Unlimited. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can borrow this great book for free. You can pick up All About Marilyn, the absolutely fabulous 5-star screenplay that every woman seems to love, on Kindle Unlimited. It's also in paperback, but you can pick it up on Kindle Unlimited. If you have Amazon Prime, you can borrow this for free. And you can pick up A Recipe for Success on ebook. It's on Kindle. It's on Smashwords. And you can pick that great book up for 99 cents. And you can take a look at all the great books that I have to offer. I have a great big catalog on Amazon.com. And there's a whole bunch of fiction and nonfiction, a lot of great titles. You can sit there and read them. All sorts of stuff you do enjoy. I do young adult fiction, and I do all sorts of titles. There's almost 50 books on there, or over 50 books. So there's a lot of great reading on there. If you have Amazon Prime, you can get a lot of these books for free. But feel free to take a good look at them. I'm going to put a link in the description box. But that's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.